Okay, so first, good afternoon, everyone. We are happy to be holding, we from the PTSS of Tarsus Spiritist Society are happy to be holding this session of CAFÉ or Spiritism. This is a special meeting, as Rosanna said, that is held every once in a while, at least, usually on Saturdays. And the focus is to raise questions and debate, share ideas and thoughts about Spiritism and different aspects of Spiritism. And today we will be discussing the topic of Spiritism, a new paradigm of religion. So we have two special guests today. The first one is Suzana Simões. She was born in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and she was raised in a Spiritist family. She moved to the United States 25 years ago. Professionally, she is a doctor of physical therapy. She is one of the founders of the Conscious Living Spiritist group in Miami and a worker of the Spiritist movement. The other guest we have is Daniel Santos. He is the co-founder and current president of the Spiritist Society of Baltimore in Maryland, USA. And he is also part of the United States Spiritist Federation board. Professionally, he works at the United States Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, and as an interdisciplinary scientist. Welcome. We are very happy to have you both here. And we open the floor for you to your initial thoughts on the topic. Thank you.
Okay, so I will go first. And first of all, thank you for the invitation. It's very nice to meet the group, to meet each one of you. I want to praise your efforts to do this work in English and to have meetings like this. It is indeed very challenging, and it is a work that requires tremendous amount of faith and perseverance. It is slow. It requires also patience and understanding that there is our time, but there is God's time, and that things work into God's time, which is much broader than our perspective on things. So I would say, if I can say anything, that the most important thing is to invest in the process, because the results belong to God. But they will only come if God finds the people, the minds, and the hearts that are willing to persevere and to trust that there is a process. And I think of it as a race where each person is a team race, where each person needs to run its piece and then pass on the baton to the next team member. So right now, the important thing is that each one of us, wherever we are, we run the best race we can while we are here, so that we can pass the baton in the best position possible for the ones who will take the race, the next phase of the race. So congratulations for the initiative and for the work that you are already doing. It's very interesting because, I do a lot of speeches and lectures, and people they call me and they say, can you speak here and there? And first thing I ask is, what would you like me for you to talk about? Or usually I think about topics that interest me and that I would like to develop. So I'm always thinking about topics. And it was quite interesting when you guys said, let's talk about the basic principles of Spiritism. I haven't talked about the basic principles of Spiritism forever. And it was a really joyful week that I had, going back and rereading what is Spiritism, and really enjoying and marveling at the simplicity and complexity at the same time of these principles that make so much sense at the beginning and at the end of the day, right? And that we take for granted these days as we keep talking about all kinds of different things without realizing what is the foundation that holds the whole structure that we are living within. Hi, Sandra. I pay attention in the name. Welcome. You were lovely introduced by your husband. And yes, I hope your daughter made it safe to her party. Okay. So moving on. In any case, and so I had a great pleasure to study this week, and I will share with you that I am personally living a very difficult moment in my life with my father being very ill in Brazil and in a very, very difficult situation. So the study just gave me so much gratitude and appreciation for knowing these principles and what they are able to do for each one of us, and really, really reminds me and reiterates the importance of us doing this work and truly, truly spreading the word, but even more than that, being living models of this doctrine that we embrace in everywhere we are, you know, our work environment, in our society, wherever we are. I just hope that these very basic principles can become a solid foundation in our lives and carry us and give us the courage to carry on the work that we invited to do, which will really, really make a huge impact on this planet and the lives that are touched by our personal experiences. I speak to you with a very, very sore soul today. I am being very, very honest. I had a very, very difficult day, but I appreciate being here to talk to you about, from the beginning, what is the definition of Spiritism. And so in what is Spiritism, the spirits will put to Kardec that Spiritism is a science of observation and a philosophical doctrine. So let's pay attention, because it's not defined here as a religion, right? A practical science, in other words, it consists in the relationships that can be established with the spirits. And a philosophy, because it entails all the moral consequences that result from these relationships. So when we are talking about Spiritism, we are really talking about this scientific project that Allan Kardec developed based on the observation that there was something else in nature beyond magnetism, beyond what science knew, and that he came to the realization that behind the intelligent phenomena that he was observing, there were intelligences, right? So Spiritism is really, really a science that studies, that consists of these relationships that we can establish with the spirits, and a body of knowledge, a philosophy of living that brings moral consequences to our lives. In the same book, a little bit more ahead in the book, he has a dialogue with the priest. And in this dialogue, we find a very interesting discussion about the concept of religion. And Kardec is going to differentiate Spiritism from the traditional religions as they are known by saying that Spiritism does not concern itself with dogmatic issues. Therefore, Spiritism is not a religion in that sense. He is, again, trying to differentiate Spiritism from what were considered and classified as religions at the time. So he will say, and allow me to read, he will say, Spiritism is a science that has moral consequences, as do all philosophical sciences. It comes to shed light on a multitude of questions formerly insolvable and misunderstood. Its true character, therefore, is of a science and not of a religion. And he's going to say that the proof of this is that it counts amongst its adherents people of all faiths who have not renounced to their convictions because of it. So again, here, Kardec, in talking with the priest, will reiterate the idea that it is primarily a science that helps us to answer many, many questions, many issues that we saw in our lives that we could not understand, we could not comprehend. It brings clear explanations about those facts, right? And it's also a philosophy. But it is a body of knowledge that many people can embrace without having to renounce to their formal religion, so to speak. But although he says that it's not a religion, he's going to say also to the priest that Spiritism does not contradict the foundation of all religions. So Spiritism will, for example, proclaim the existence of one sole God, who is just and who is good. It states that spirits are free and responsible for their actions, their choices, and they are rewarded according to these choices and actions, whether they are good or bad. They're going to be held accountable for the choices and actions that they are doing. And it's going to place above all virtues charity, as it has been taught to us by Christ. So these three ideas are the foundations of many, or if not all, religions, right? The idea of a God that exists, the idea that we are held accountable for our behavior and actions in this lifetime, and the idea that we need to be charitable, that we need to be loving to one another. This is core of all religions, and in that sense, Spiritism also holds this belief system. So when we look at this, what we're going to understand is that Spiritism is not a formal religion, but Spiritism, through its scientific aspect, that grants us the certainty of the continuity of life, the certainty that spirits exist, and through its philosophical body, will have as a result the development of this sentiment of religiosity. And we are going to talk about the sentiment with a little bit more of details at the end. So when we look at the philosophy of Spiritism, right, and we look at the basic concepts, what are these concepts? Because again, it is the combination of the scientific certainty with the philosophy that will grant us the religiosity, the feeling. So the basic principles are: one, the existence of God, right? So God as a supreme intelligence of the universe. We look at the universe. We look at a flower. We look at a butterfly. We look at a bee. We look at ourselves. We look at the stars, the sky, and we wonder, who made all of this, right? And so when we understand that there is a cause for every single effect, and we look at the grandiosity, the complexity, the beauty of all of these things that are effects, we think it must be a cause behind all these effects, something that is magnificent, something that is a supreme intelligence that had created all those things. So from the certainty that for every effect there is a cause, we analyze the effect, we come to the cause. Although we cannot comprehend God with our minds because our minds are not yet developed, our intelligence to understand God, we're able to comprehend that God exists by the analysis of the effects. And I like to think, I love the way in which the spirit, Dias da Cruz, to the mediumship of André Moreira, speaks about God. And he says that God is this force behind the ordering and the structuring of the universe. So God, when we look at the universe and we comprehend and we feel and we appreciate the complexity and yet the harmony, the perfection, we understand that there is a force that not only created us, but a force that actually organizes life, structures life, and sustains life. And we, like all nature, because we are part of nature, not only we were created by this force, but this force sustains and guides us towards our final destination. So that's the first principle. And it's a principle that gives us, it's very important and it's very meaningful because it creates our identity. We now are no longer, the biologist, the teacher. We are so much more than that. We are divine beings. We are heirs of the universe. We have a father. Even if you are someone who in this lifetime has been abandoned, even if you feel an orphan, when you have God in your paradigm of life, in your as part of your certainty, the things that you know about, you never orphan. You feel like you belong. You're always going to have that sense of belonging and worth. So it's a very important, sustaining, and essential central issue to our lives. The other principle is the principle of immortality of the soul. So we learn with the immortality of the soul that we are spirits. And the spirits are simply the soul of the ones who used to be living in this earth or in other planets and have been stripped of their corporeal envelope. So they are not, as some people believe, these like vague, indefinite beings or flames or ghosts as we see in, movies, like Hollywood movies, right? They are actually beings like we are, with a body that is fluidic. It's not visible to our sense, and nevertheless is a very well defined body. It is the continuity of who we are with all that we have acquired and developed. So our knowledge, our feelings, our emotions, our virtues, it all moves on, goes on with us and comprises what we call the spirits. So what the idea of immortality does for us, it pretty much kills our biggest enemy, which is called death. With the idea of immortality, there is no longer death. The spirits tell us that the only thing that exists in the universe is life. There is life everywhere, whether it's life inside the physical body or life outside of the physical body. We are always talking about life, a life that goes on, a life that is no longer this vague idea of some place on top of a cloud where we are spending the rest of eternity. No, now we are aware that life goes on, and this life is our real life, which is abundant, which is filled with meaning, with learning, with possibilities. It's a life that's ever expanding. It's a life that is something for us to look forward to. I don't know about you. It's not that I think of leaving this planet any sooner than necessary, but with the Spiritism, what happens is actually that is very painful experience. Many people are afraid of dying, but spiritually speaking, it's actually much harder to be born in this dense flesh than actually to die, because to die is to be liberated, is to go back to our real home, whereas to incarnate is means to the spirit a type of death, in a sense that we have to take a being that has all kinds of perceptions and all kinds of possibilities and confine that being into a body that's dense, that's physical, that's material, and that for the spirit represents prison, represents confinement. So it changes the perspective and the understanding of life and death for us. Then we have the other principle, which is the principle of reincarnation. And reincarnation is that principle that allows us the idea of progressive improvement. Because as we know, no spirit is capable in one lifetime, in one experience on this planet, which is, by the way, a very, very, very short amount of time when we think about the concept of science, right? So my oldest patient just turned 105 now in August. So we are living longer and longer, but yet it remains a very small period of time. So what reincarnation does, it will give the spirit renew opportunities to, again, strip itself from ignorance so that we can continue to expand our conscience, but also gives us the possibility to amend for our past mistakes. And so to continue to learn and to continue to grow. It is perhaps one of the greatest manifestations of God's mercifulness, because it allows us to resume, to restart as many times as necessary. And it is in the course of our reincarnations that we are going to witness God's laws working. And I have this image of a toddler. Daniel knows that well. Not too long ago, Rafa was learning to walk. So you have a toddler who is learning to walk, and you have the parents with their hands right behind, balancing, guiding, directing this way, that way. And I think of God's laws this way. It's like if they are God's hands, the law of cause and effect, the law of action and reaction. Those are laws that they are God's hands, pretty much balancing us, guiding us, helping us to, when we lose our balance and we go like drifting to the side, the law comes and boom, redirects us. It's a very soft and loving way of thinking about the laws, very different than the connotation of punishment that has been provided by the religions up to these days, and many times still in Spiritism are spoken from that point of view. I think that this, Suzana, is a presentation of the law that it suits the American population. When we present to the laws and align with the spirituality, the folks that are in the realm of spirituality without being Spiritism, this understanding of the loss as something that is present to re-educate the soul, to redirect, to help us to find the aim, the right aim, to correct our aim in life, right? So I like to think of it in that way. So that's reincarnation. Then we go to our next principle, which is the plurality of the worlds. And that we learn about that in the Spirit's book. We learn about that in the Gospel according to Spiritism, the interpretation of Jesus' statement when he says, there are many dwellings in my Father's house. And the Spirits will tell us that we have many different worlds that revolve in the infinite space, offering the incarnate spirits stations that are appropriate to their advancement, to their level of consciousness. So when we think about the different dwellings, we can think about these different stations. We can also think about the different inner dwellings. So we can think about spirits and where they are in their level of trouble, in the level of peace, in the level of harmony or disharmony, and those are the different dwellings, the different places and positions of consciousness and awareness. Whether you're talking about inner dwellings or outer dwellings, they actually match. So for each inner state, there is a proper classroom in the infinite. For each inner state, there is a proper wing of a hospital where that spirit needs to be conducted for his or her rehabilitation. So I like to think of the earth as a hospital that has a wing for patients that are in acute phase, a wing for patients that are have developed some chronic diseases, and for patients who are active in rehabilitation. So we have here a very comprehensive hospital that attend to souls, but most of the souls, if not all of them, with very few exceptions, right, which are the missionaries, we are all souls that are ill and in need of some type of care. But there are other dwellings of spirits who have actually been discharged from these type of hospitals, and they are now in some sort of recovery homes where they have left the hospital situation, but they still having some assistance, but they are healthier, they're able to be more useful, they still commit mistakes, but they are not so gravely ill as we are here. And then there are dwellings where they are no longer hospitals, they are more like homes. And then there are dwellings where the homes are celestial and there is no longer any pain, any suffering, any evil. And those are our permanent homes, and we'll get there one day. So this is the universe, and these are the many dwellings. The dwellings are these different stations that will meet precisely our spiritual needs and will allow us to succeed and to recover and to progress and to move up to our next level. And then finally, the last principle is the principle of communicability that speaks about the spirit's ability to communicate with us. And this idea up to this day is not accepted by a number of individuals. And Kardec, in What is the Spiritism, says that this is the case because many people still have mistaken ideas of what the souls are after death. And so he says in a very funny way, he says, people think that souls or spirits are like a breath, these like vaporous beings that are somehow very vague and that evaporate. And when they evaporate, they go somewhere, God knows where. So Kardec says, how is it that someone who does not have a better idea of spirits, who think that spirits are vaporous things that evaporate and disappear and go somewhere, it's really not reasonable to think that those things would be able to come and to communicate with us. But when you understand that spirits are not these vaporous things that disappear, right? But the actual beings who have a body, a defined body, are individual beings, then it really, the idea of communication no longer becomes incompatible with reason. And we learn that the visible and the invisible world, they interact constantly and react upon each other incessantly. So we are constantly in connection with the spiritual realm, and the spiritual realm is constantly in connection with us. So this is something that we see across time. We see spirits communicating pretty much in all cultures. And by the time of Kardec, the communications became a lot more overt and pronounced, because Allan Kardec says that it was on the designs of Providence to put an end to the scourge of disbelief and materialism by means of obvious proof, enabling those who have left Earth to come and to attest to their existence, and also to tell us about their happy and unhappy condition. So it came a time that this phenomena was important to occur, important to become more visible, to awaken humanity to the fact that we are not only this physical reality that is here one day and tomorrow will no longer be. So finally, we'll get to the final piece. So what are the consequences of understanding all of this? What are the consequences of studying, accepting the investigations of Allan Kardec, all the body of knowledge that he brings in, all these principles that we just talked about? Well, it gives life a different meaning, doesn't it? It makes us appreciate our life here on Earth from a very, very different perspective. It changes our perspective. Also helps us to understand all the differences that we see, and gives an explanation to our sufferings, to our pain. It helps us to understand that the difference that we see is only a temporary difference that speaks about our stage of evolution, our stage of consciousness. Each person is living, is dealing with the circumstances, with the people, with the facts that are the most appropriate for their spiritual needs in a given time. So for one might be a physical disability, for another one might be a mental disability, for someone might be difficult children, for some other one might be difficult parents. I mean, the level of challenges are immense, but each person is being given exactly what he or she needs to make the most out of this time here on our present incarnation. It gives us a tremendous amount of hope, hope in the future, hope in humanity, starting with the hope with our own selves, because we understand that we are all divine beings. So when you look at someone who you perhaps label as crazy, insane, someone who thinks the absolutely opposite of you, someone that you might even dislike or despise, it helps us to at least understand that although we feel all of that temporarily, that person is a divine being just like you and I. We are divine beings despite of our feelings, right, of animosity and hostility. And for both of us, for the one that we dislike and for ourselves, we were born in the same way, and our destination is exactly the same. So whether you're looking at one person, whether you're looking at yourself, whether you're looking at humanity, with the Spiritism, you always have hope. You might be down, you might be sad, you might be broken, but you never lose hope. And that's one of the amazing things that Spiritism does for us. It helps us, it stimulates us to seek to do good and to manifest love, because we know and we understand that outside of love there is no salvation. Meaning, outside of love there is no peace. Outside of love there is no harmony. So it is an invitation for all of us to surrender to love. And it's easier said than done, because a lot of times in our most intimate relationships, we harbor resentment, we hold grudges, but life is constantly calling us to love. I will speak to you today with feeling like deep knowledge of that as I look back at my relationship with my father, right? And at this very moment, I am in a deep process of reviewing my own feelings and telling myself, and that's what is the most painful part of life, is that so many times we lose precious time complaining, accusing, holding people responsible for things instead of just opening for love. I tell you, open yourself to love. Let down your guard and embrace the people who are right next to you while it's day, because time will go by and then you don't want to look back and say, I resisted love, right? So love is the answer, is the beginning, is the path, is the end, is everything. And Spiritism tells us that when it says outside of love there is no salvation, it's true. Outside of love there is no peace. So it changes the way that we relate with the world and we relate to one another. And it is precisely in this aspect, the aspect of connecting us or reconnecting us, first with our own selves, right? In accepting and loving ourselves. The more we can do that, the more we can do that to our neighbor. It is in this aspect, the aspect of connection, where we see everybody as a family. We understand that everybody is our brother and sister. This aspect of Spiritism that brings us together, that helps us to see one another's brothers and sisters, that lies the very sentiment of religiosity. Because true religiosity is connection. Religiosity calls for connection with God. And we cannot connect to God if we don't connect with one another. And this is how Spiritism can change the world, helping us to see who we are and who every single person is for what they truly, truly are. And in doing that, help us to open our hearts, to connect, to love, to embrace. People come to me in the fraternal counseling and they will say, God is so far away. How do I connect with God? And I say, God is everywhere, everywhere. God is in God's creations. Every single being that comes in front of you is God's presence in your life. The more you can connect with God's creations, the more you are connected with God. There is the way, that's the path. And that is the religious aspect of Spiritism that can change our world. And that is the message that I had to bring for today. I will pass the ball to my dear brother, Daniel.
Wow, I'm still processing here all these explanations, Suzana, that you brought. I don't know if, Rosanna, if we should stop to make comment, or do you want me just to pick back what Suzana just said, that for me, we should stop here and just go to the next phase. But
Well,
of course, since I'm here, I'll contribute with a little bit more, you know, because I think Suzana covers beautifully about this doctrine that we all love and we are all trying to learn more and more. So what do you have to say?
I would say that you should talk. because our group tends to talk too much. So I'm afraid that if you leave it to us, you will not have time to talk. So please just do your part, and then we'll open the floor.
Just pick back on what Suzana just brought to us, and she beautifully reminded us about the principle of Spiritism, the definition about Spiritism, and also touch at the end about the aspect of religion. I cannot pronounce that word. Religiosity. That is, as she mentioned, is the main thing that Spiritism comes to us. It's not another religion. And talking about Spiritism as, you know, the future of religion, as what people always often ask if Spiritism is going to be the religion of the future. And we have that sentence that says Spiritism is not going to be the religion of the future, but the future of religion. What that means when we listen, when we hear that. And I think Suzana beautiful explained about what's the definition, what Kardec's already stated in the book, What is Spiritism? That per se, Spiritism is not a religion per se, in the sense that we understand religion, but also there is a religion component, because once we understand the investigational process, once we understand the philosophical process, we find ourselves asking the third question, what I'm going to do with that? What this information is going to help us to become a better person? What this information that life doesn't end with the perishment of the physical body is going to bring to me? How can I get my relationship in place with others? So, and by asking those questions and try to implement that in our life, bring the best of us and bring the moral connection that we all looking for. And that is the religion aspect that Spiritism brings to us, because this teaching will make us be better human beings. But then go a little bit back about the study of Spiritism. So we are very well, we very well accepted the current science, the science of matter, okay? So one of the things in the science that we know and we don't even question is the object of study. So I heard there is someone here, a biologist, I think it's Julia, said that she's a biologist. So for example, when we look biology, so what is the objective of study of biology? Biology study life, the evolution of life in different kingdoms, study how our organism works. And that's the objective of study. You know, when we look at the sky, when we look at the cosmos, when we look at the universe, there is a science that studies those phenomena or is responsible for that. I heard here that there is someone that is engineer, isn't it? I think is Vivi husband. So he mentioned about his profession. So there is a objective study about his profession. Nursing, physiotherapist. So then when we come to Spiritism, and Kardec defines Spiritism as a science, so what's the objective of study? The object of study of Spiritism? The spirit. And once we understand their true nature, and that's why he defines Spiritism as this science that study the origin, the nature, and the destiny of the spirit, and the relationship with the corporeal world. Conventional science study pretty much matter, you know, but doesn't go much to the spiritual side. That is our true nature. Doesn't ask much the question. There is a question about who am I, where I come from, where I go, that classic philosophical question. And we are trying to find the answer by using our scientific, the science that study matter, and we kind of like be like, you know, asking those questions, never come to a consensus. Thank you, God, that the spirits brought this doctrine, and Allan Kardec was very well aware and took advantage of the teaching of the spirits. This teaching that we're discussing here is not Kardec's teaching by itself. Of course, he was one of the group of spirit that agree to incarnate and to be the editor-in-chief of this body of knowledge that Suzana just mentioned. So, but this is the teaching of those that's a little bit ahead of us. One day, they were like us in our level. But once in the other side, and of course, we don't have the information about how evolved those spirits are, but some of them put their name in the codification. For example, if you go to the introduction of the Spirit's book, there are names over there of those that contribute to answer those questions. Every time we read the Spirit's book, I always ask myself, who gave that particular question? Mm-hmm. I mean, we know that, for example, the last chapter, the closing of the book, St. Augustine was the one that closed the book. And we know as a Spiritist that St. Augustine was the main coordinate of that particular book. And he was gave the task to close the book, and he closed beautifully with the last essay that he put in the Spirit's book. But we can find over there in that book, we can find scientists, we can find astronomers, we can find saints, we can find inventors, spirit that lives in the last millennium, and soon after realize that, you know, they made their contribution here, they help foster progress, and when they're on the other side, they were invited by the governor. And one day, I hope this group here can be invited to be, you know, when we be like in the planet, the angelic planet, probably, to go to another planet and to help to materialize this body of knowledge. So when you read
Saint Daniel, you'll be Saint Daniel.
So that's the destiny here. We all gonna be saints, no matter if you. I always often says here when I study group that you're gonna evolve even if you are upset. No, don't worry, you're gonna evolve. There is no way to go back. So if you are angry, you have to move on. You have your 5 minutes of be angry. That's fine. The Creator is gonna allow your 5 minutes. After that, you know, there is no way you can stay there. Because why? What you learn in Spiritism, and this is in the book, Action and Reaction, by the mentor Druso says to, I think, Silas and Hilario and André Luiz. There is a passage in that book that he's explaining about, you know, the consequence of our action. And he said that in the universe, there is only two great powers. The power of God that can make change, you know, things, and pain, suffering. That's gonna help us to move on, to progress. So I think we need to think about those concepts that Spiritists bring to us. Now, the next question is, I know that I start talking about Spiritism as being a religion of the future. And we already know here, and every time we do a study group, I always add the spiritual plane. Although we are a few group here incarnated, I'm pretty sure there is much more discarnated that are learning with us. I always take in consideration those invisible friends, you know, and it's not too much, it's never too much we repeat the same thing that may be like, oh, we already know that. We already have learned about this. But it's always good to go back in the codification and look at what Kardec has brought to us. And not only Kardec, but the superior spirit through the mediums, and Kardec decided to organize this. I would like to read a passage for our reflection. And this passage is in the Genesis, basically relate to Spiritism, this Spiritist principle impacting our society and change our society, because in the future, this spiritual principle is going to permeate all the areas of our society, like, you know, religion, even like the scientific field as well. And this information is in the book, The Genesis, chapter 18 is item 17. And the chapter 18 is come, the time has come. And the item is item 17, sign of the times. So Kardec talking about the new generation, but also he talks about what these teachings that Suzana brought, the principle of Spiritism, will impact and will help us to live in a better society. And Kardec says, fraternity, and I'm gonna highlight the word here, fraternity, must be the cornerstone of the new social order. However, there can be no truth, solid and effective fraternity, unless it rests upon an unshakable foundation. Which unshakable foundation Kardec is talking about? The principle of Spiritism. And he continues saying, that foundation is faith. And how you build faith? Kardec already mentioned about the unshakable faith as the cornerstone for us to progress. That is unshakable faith. Not faith in this or that particular dogmas, which change with times, and people who cast stone at one another, because they feed hostility. So Kardec already say, look, those kind of faith that change time to time, those kind of dogmas that, you know, doesn't have an explanation behind those rituals. So Kardec said that that's not going to continue. He's talking about the faith in the fundamental principle that everyone can accept it. I wanted to stop here and bring a reflection for one of the principles that Suzana mentioned. Is the first one about God. We still, even though, and I have to be very careful every time I talk about those principles, so not to think that those principles only accept in Spiritism, because we already know other religions, other philosophies that already accept those principles. But to have those principles condensed as a doctrine up to date and now, only Spiritism has done this. And that's the beauty of this teaching. And Kardec has to call this Spiritism because he needs to give a name to this body of knowledge. That is in the nature, that is everywhere. And so what we still see in our society is everybody believes in God, but they think the God that belongs to their congregation is the God. And here Spiritism comes and bring a different definition of God. That is answering the first question of the Spirit's book. That God is the supreme intelligence, the first cause of everything. The first cause of everything is the consequence of this supreme intelligence. Is the supreme intelligence, period, the first cause of everything. And when humanity in this planet really understand that definition, then the God from their church or from their congregation they're gonna accept as if it is the same God of the other congregation. But right now, our concept of God is still very tribal. Tribal, that's the way.
Yes,
Tribal.
yes.
It's my tribe. It's my spirit center. It's my church, and we have to be very careful, especially if we are here. I mean, I'm here in the US. You are in Canada, and if we are like take this responsibility to bring this teaching to others. How are we gonna bring that in a way that we cannot put ourselves as the Pharisees put themselves, you know, like the chosen one, you know, they're chosen by God and that's it. And everything that doesn't fit in that line of thought became a problem. And in Spiritism, we also need to be careful of that, because this is a big responsibility to have and to understand and to accept these teachings. Of course, there are people out there that this teaching is going to come and it's not going to make any difference. And we already know why, because every one of us has our time. Suzana, very beautiful, mentioned in the beginning that, you know, we need to respect the other person's time. But the march of progress is inevitable. Will happen. Sooner or later will happen. And for us here that taking this responsibility, not to learn about this doctrine, but also put ourselves available to help others to understand the doctrine, is put a huge responsibility, because our act, the way we behave, will speak louder than just come here and do a study group. So this is one thing that I wanted to mention. And also, just to finalize this paragraph that Kardec mentioned about, you know, the future of religion, basically. He continues says that a faith in the fundamental principle that everyone can accept God, the soul, the future, the ongoing progress of individuals, and the perpetuity of relationship among them. So when everybody in this planet accept the God that belongs to everybody, the universal concept of God, the cosmic God, when everybody accepts that we are spirit, live in a temporary moment in the physical body, when everybody believes or accept that there is a future life and that we progress and that the relationship between us needs to be a brotherly relationship, so then we gonna see this principle that Suzana brought to us become the religion of the future without the name religion. So in the Spirit Review of 1868, so in the month of December, Kardec has a speech, a speech about November 1st that's considered the Day of the Dead. And I have the chance, if you go to the Spirit Review, the month of December, and he starts with a question: is Spiritism a religion? and the speech is long, is, I don't know, 10 page, 15 pages, long discourse. He published that. And there, what Suzana mentioned, he basically lined up what Spiritism is. And of course, he said it is a religion, but depends how you interpret religion. If this is the conventional religion, with structure, with ritual, no, Spiritism is not religion. But if it is, if you see religion as this aspect to help you to reconnect with the Creator and help you to become a better person, then it is a religion. So at the end of the day, when some people ask, I say, look, that's what we should be able to translate and to explain this to people that is asking this question to our groups, our society. But I also like to say that, look, let's not worry too much about the word. Just do the best that you can. Because sometimes we get caught up in the definitions. That's not going to help us to become a better person. And to finalize, I would like to just bring to you, like, when we study the André Luiz series, and especially, I mean, there is a couple books, the mentor of that book, that the mentor of the spirit benefactor of André Luiz, that he's learning, always bring information that I mean, all the information is very good information, but that is in relation to religion. One of the things that you don't find too much in those books is the presence of temples, of church. You don't find that. In the Nosso Lar, it's very clear. You read the whole book of Nosso Lar, there is no mention of church, of religion. There is no religion. If you read the book Action and Reaction, if I'm not mistaken, there is a passage that mentor Druze, André Luiz Hilário, they go to a place that they call the Prayer Temple, something like that, that they were over there because that's a very dense region that they were doing their research. And André Luiz asks this guy, who's those people that comes and they seems they are praying over there, but this is not it was a place that was not a church, but they are using that place to, you know, as a church to pray. And we see that there is no sacred temple that is not, there is no religion denomination. So what we learned that the physical plane is a copy of the spiritual one. So if you look at for the high, more evolved colonies, this notion of religion, the idea of different God disappear, because then we have just one God, you have just the divine laws, and everybody respect everybody. Everybody is in the same level of evolution, kind of very close with its particularity, you know. So I would like to stop here and then we move to our question and answers. But that's my little contribution. And sorry about for the word religiosity. That's I cannot pronounce. I'm so sorry. I'm from the northeast of Brazil, and sometimes
that's so good. We all have some that we have the same problem. So no worries about that. So what about, guys, before we just start an open discussion, if we go around again and then you say what you think and then we open for people to speak openly. So let us start differently now. Let us start with Cristiane. Please, what you would like to share or to point out?
I just want to comment a few things that I found very interesting. Like when Suzana started talking about the analogy of the baton. I'll never forget that. It was so good. Yeah, I wrote it down, but I didn't even need to write it down. And I kept actually not only because of the CAFÉ that we were having, the discussion, a friend of mine this week asked me about, she asked me if I could teach in the evenings, and I said that I couldn't because we meet every Mondays and Tuesdays, 6:30, right, online now. And then she asked why, and I said, because I study together with a group of people, we study my religion. And then she was like, oh, really, what is it? And I said, Spiritism, and she's like, what? And I tried to define very simply, very quickly, because we were like break time in the school, and I tried to define what it was, and I had a lot of difficulty to explain somebody, you know, who doesn't believe in Jesus or anything. Mm-hmm. And then after I finished, she was like, huh, okay, you know. And then I kept thinking about it, like, I don't think I did a good job. And I wish this had happened before she asked you the question.
you must.
Well, you can always go back to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I never ever spoke about the race and the baton. It was I prepared this week. I did read. I did put a little bit of you know, what is the word I'm missing now in English?
Highlight.
Yeah, yeah. So I knew the order of my thoughts, right? And this idea was never ever. I never spoke about that in any lecture I did before.
Oh,
So it was
really?
it was totally inspired
Oh, that's so nice.
right now. So yes, I think it was whispered in my ears because
Probably.
never something that I talk in any lectures. I thought about it before. No, it just came. And I also like the idea. I thought that is a pretty good image indeed.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, it
Yes.
It
is.
makes total sense. So thank you.
No, no problem.
Okay, so let's, Isabel, would you like to go now?
Sure. First, I want to say thank you. Suzana, I wasn't here before when you guys started, but we knew you from the lectures that we use in our prayer group, and I used you a lot. So thank you for being here.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Glad to know that we are
Yeah.
contributing a little bit.
We are. So you're already part of a group in one way. And, regardless, I'm a learner. And no matter how much we talk about this, there is always something new to learn and to put out there. So thank you. I really enjoy your presentation. Same as Danielle. Thank you so much. It was very opening, and my heart and my mind. It's still a lot to process. I'm gonna hear again afterwards because it was very simple but very profound. So thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. Adriana and Sandra, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Suzana and Danielle. That was beautiful. I'm kind of speechless. I just want to say thank you guys, and how grateful we should be, and I am, about this doctrine, about Spiritism. And the thing for me is how it consoles us, how much hope it brings. So for me, it's the major thing about Spiritism. I love studying it. I have so much to study. We were talking about that this morning, that we won't finish the pile of the books this existence, but it's there. But the major thing is how much hope it brings, and how the faith it brings. It's not like a childish faith, but for me, my faith is stronger because I trust. Now we can trust God because we understand a little bit more. So yeah, so I'm thankful for you guys being here and to know this doctrine.
Wonderful. Yes, the study is it's incredible. Again, I am really always surprised when people say, "Oh, the Spirit's book? No, I've done this course already." I'm like, really? I mean, it's something that, I mean, just again, it's amazing. And I know you've heard this probably a million times, but I'm going to say it because I keep getting back to the same feeling. You go back to the gospel, you go back to the Spirit's book, you go back to what is Spiritism. I don't know how people have time to read so many other things, because I just want to keep devouring these books, because every time I go back to them, of course, you were in a different place. You're in a different place intellectually, cognitively, emotionally, spiritually, because of your experiences, because of what you have been living and learning. So when you read those things, you see things that you didn't see before. You comprehend principles that you couldn't comprehend before, or you're able to read with a much more expanded mind. So I go off the basic books very little. I stay on them. I stay on Kardec. I stay on Emmanuel and on Joanna, but always going back to Kardec. You know, it's really, really I would say this. Yes, read Emmanuel. Yes, read Joana, Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, whoever you want that is these spirits who are trustworthy, to mediums they're trustworthy as well. But make sure that from time to time you go back and you study Kardec, because it's you know, sometimes we get a little distracted and we lose touch with the foundational work, and we don't really we don't have yet, and probably will never in this lifetime, have a good grasp of the codification itself. So we need to keep going back to it, because the more we go back to it, the more we understand the principles in the codification in depth, the better will be when we're reading other things. It gives us the foundation that we need. So that is precisely, Sandra, the process. It's not a process for a lifetime. It's a process for lives. I mean, it's just, you know, it's just like when with school, you know, you go out of school, you never stop studying. You should want to be a good professional. You have to keep going back. You have to keep learning more and more. There's never end. And with the Spiritism, it's not different.
And it's also important, Suzana, we discussed this a lot in our group, that sometimes if you get distracted by other things, you can deviate from the path, because it's always good to go back and to correlate whatever you are reading with Kardec. Because that will keep you in line, will keep you on a path where you can always go back, and we can always say and connect things in a meaningful way, without interpretations that will lead to someplace else. But it's really, really important what you just said. Adriano, sorry, I interrupted.
Sorry.
It's you.
Thank you guys for being with us on a Saturday evening for you in US. So yeah, it's very important, in my opinion, to have this opportunity to discuss, to learn. More and more we study, we see that we need to learn more and more. I love history, right? So when I look in the history to see in the Jesus time, and you see the challenges that the first apostles have, even in speaking Greek in that time, right? So because they speak in other language, they need to spread Paul of Tarsus, and one thing that brings me more peace is in the beginning, when we turn a Spiritist, we like to convert others, right? So you are concerned to convert others. And when you move to US before and after move to Canada, so we are, in my opinion, I think that we need to change ourselves, right? So that's the main teachings. Even for Jesus to the disciples, right? So this is the main part. Who is the biggest one between us, right? So the disciples inquired Jesus, and he mentioned, so you already have the kingdom of God inside you. So I guess this is the answer, right? So through our changes, and you learn more, you understand more. I guess it's not easy, right, in the situations as Suzana, you mentioned, right? So everybody has this kind of situations in our life, and is the time maybe to show our testimony, right? So how you put your faith to work in moments that is challenging, right? So for everybody, and I guess this in North America, the Spiritism. So in this case, we need to of course, to spread this knowledge, to try to spread, but the most important is to ourselves, right? So keep the basics, right? This is for the native, the people from here, I guess is easier to understand from the basics things of science, the threshold, right? And after evolving, I guess it's easy to explain to them, to have an elevator speech, right, Christiane, from them that ask you about what is Spiritism, right? Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you. Vivi, would you like to say something?
Yes. Well, thank you very much, of course. And Suzana, I want you to feel hugged, a big embrace, like the.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Not really, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. So, thank you so much, Danielle. Also, and all your like, it was very complimenting to each other, and
Yes.
very much like, from the very basic to a little deep understanding, and that's very, very nice. That was kind of the answer I was looking for this, like, what all these spirits talk about, that Spiritism will be future, and you see so much those messages, right? And we are studying now the gospel. And I say, I don't really understand what they mean. Like, okay, I love Spiritism. It makes sense for me. I want everybody to get what I get from it. But what is really it, right? So then thank you very much. It's very nice. And from both, like when you were talking, it came to my mind a lot about the book, The Planetary Transition, that I read very recently. And actually, I went camping for my vacation at Summit, and I say, I want to read something, but I'm not studying it. So, and I chose this book that I had and I want to read, and I never read before. And then I start seeing all these things about religion, and then I say, okay, let's make notes. And here I am sticking the book, notes. So I'm gonna bring them now, right? So I really studied too. So when I love your comparison to Suzanne, when you said, sorry, I called you Suzanne. I have a friend, Suzanne, Suzana.
That's okay.
So when you said about the inner and outer dwellings, right? I love that because it's so true, right? Like that's what we are inside, that's where we are, right? So then I really love that one. And I don't know what you were talking about when you said that each spirit's living according of what he or she needs. And you talked something that reminded me, this passage of the book, The Planetary Transition, in the second part, when Dr. Santana is talking to the spirits who will reincarnate. For who didn't read the book, it is a group of enlightened spirits who are coming to reincarnate, to start to renovate the earth, right? To bring a little involvement to us. And then he talks to them, and then it is interesting because that's what passed to my mind at that time, right? I will read what he said. I read the part to be truth. So keep Jesus in mind and heart, preserving the sentiments of honor learned in your school of religious faith, convinced, however, of your immortality. So that means those spirits from the evolved planets already, they will come to incarnate in the earth, and they won't be all spiritists. They will be all religions.
Right.
They will, but he said, keep Jesus in mind. Even who will be in a religion who doesn't believe in Jesus, probably, right? So, and that's like 3 lines, but that means so much. And it's like so much like a summary of a lot of what you guys said, right? Like, and the immortality, he highlights the immortality. And another one, Danielle, when one time Filomeno mentions, because in the whole book, I don't have the time to go here, like, but in the whole book, in the first part, they work together, a group of spirits, to rescue the souls that are suffering with the tsunami, right? And then and that's the beginning of the book. They already show it's a group of spirits from different religions. And that caught the attention of Filomeno, because he says, like, oh, you are Catholic, you are Muslim. And then the nurse was from the Anglican Church, and so was the mentor of the doctor. That meaning in the previous incarnation, they were in these religions. And then now they were discarnate spirits, enlightened, helping, right, in these situations. So, and the whole book, they show this, how like the priest could say a speech to some spirits who were lamenting, how the Muslim could read or they say chanting the Quran to a spirit who was suffering so much, and how that helps those spirits in that moment, because that was what they knew from the earth, right, from that time. And then there was a part of the book that he mentions, Daniel, that they went to a place to pray, I think after the work, one of the days of the work. And he says, and they were taken somewhere else too, from where they were. And then he says that it was a place that it didn't resemble anything like a church or a temple. There were no figures, nothing, but it had that light on it. And it felt like a special place to pray, but nothing like what resembles, like you said, right? That doesn't exist in their deeds, right? So, yeah, I think that's it. I like for other people to.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment, Vivi, because you're talking about the planetary transition. That's a book that we are studying right now here in our society. Leo is the one that's leading the study, and once a month he present a highlight of a chapter. And thank you so much for bringing that. I mean, like, he's almost like over half of the book, probably is gonna finish the next couple months, but he brings highlights of every 2 chapters. And one thing in this book that when I read, that really caught my attention, and I think pertains to this discussion, beside of this that you brought, is some feelings that those spirit doesn't have anymore. And Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, that's observing everything, it's like, how come you don't feel the sadness, because the whole rescue through the souls that discarnate, that was stuck in because of the tsunami of 2004. And he said, well, we already passed those feelings. So when we're doing here is for us, you are help the creator, but the feelings, the attachment feelings that we still have so much to matter, they already like, is in another level. And that's caught my attention, because I mean, like, how many feelings we still have that hold us back. Mm-hmm. And Suzana mentioned very well, when pain, when the situation of a loved one is leaving, that, we just wanted to be with that person ought to, so, and all the other little things that we are so worried, I mean, doesn't make sense anymore, And I kind of like with Suzana said, because I have this feeling as well, 4 months ago, when my mom went back to the spirit world, and this really changed a lot of things in us, and some kind of feeling that we still have that's so low become not to have more importance. Thank you for bringing that, because I wanted to share these other things in the book.
And just to jump in, just to connect with something that Suzana said, bringing back to Allan Kardec as well, when Allan Kardec talks about the passions, right? So the spirits at our level, we still have the inferior passions along with higher passions, but we have to develop and to nurture the higher passions so that we can be those ones that do not feel sadness, do not feel pain anymore, just because we are above that. So that's the line of evolution that we should go, right? But I will stop there, because that's something that I think I would like to bring up too. But let us allow Cássio and Julia now.
Right. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you both, Suzana and Daniel, for your considerations on this topic. It is indeed very interesting to go back to the basics. I feel like I'm almost ready to become a spiritist now.
We all
almost convinced. And one thing that keeps coming back to my mind, right, when it comes to sharing sometimes these feelings that we have, one thing that I very much recognize is that for most of us here, if not all of us, we studied these basics a long time ago, and we kind of went through this path of understanding what Kardec is saying. For most of us, it differs. Sometimes we already come from a Christian background, sometimes not. But we go through this path, and we get to a point where we are back to the feeling of spirituality. We are back to the feeling of religiosity. But there's a path that we have to follow through these basic principles to accept them. Right? And then we take them for granted. And it becomes hard to talk about them in a very clear and precise way. And what I feel that happens here in North America is that people usually consider that religion is very much a private subject. And it's very rare that you have the opportunity to discuss that with someone. And when you do have that opportunity, not finding, and of course, this is something that I say to myself, because I've seen myself in those situations where I had this opportunity to talk to someone. They were actually willing to listen, so it was not an aggression to their sensibility. It was not an invasion of their privacy. They were there, open and ready to listen to something. Open to, well, do you have something different to tell me? Do you have a new idea to share with me? Because I'm here to listen, right? They were in that attitude. It happened only 2 or 3 times in more than 4 years living here. And I still struggle with the idea of when someone asks about what I do on Mondays, on Monday evenings, right? I still struggle. What is it that I do? How can I put it in a way that they will actually understand? Because I came to realize that if I say that I have a religious group, they are going to have a very specific understanding that will link their thoughts and feelings to the very ideas that Kardec was trying to distantiate Spiritism from in the 19th century. A hierarchical, structured, organized religion with dogmatic knowledge that you have to follow without much question. Right? And what do you both have to say about this? I mean, you already said some things. Have you ever seen yourselves in this situation where you have this 2 minutes to give the person the pitch, and what is it that you say in these situations if you've been there?
Well, I think one thing that you can say, which is the truth, is I am part of a group of friends who gather every evening on Mondays to study about spirituality. And we use this body of knowledge called Spiritism. Simple as that. So I have a meeting with a group of friends. So friends, people like you and me, who are interested to know about spirituality. And we study this body of knowledge that has been called Spiritism. Isn't that true?
That is true.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to contribute with this because this question was asked to me so many times, and I think the first time we don't know what to say, and I kind of related with, you know, your feelings. Go pretty much what Suzana said. I think we should not sugarcoating too much, but we also should not, you know, give an information that will compromise our relationship, if it is like workplace or friends that are not religion, for example. So one of the things that I observe is like, I observe people like, you know, and if they ask about this, you don't need to tell that you are a spiritist at first. I think if you do that without knowing how the person is gonna react, maybe you're gonna miss a chance. But when we talk about spirituality, then you kind of embrace everything without saying that you're a religion. We're a religion person, that we are in a religion group, and we don't need to tell that. But give this idea, and also when people ask a question to me, they give me the right to ask question back. And I ask question back as well, because now you are asking questions, so you are open for me to asking question. And it's very important for us to know how to do a proper survey, a proper assessment of where that person comes from. Because if it's someone in your work that is an atheist, then you really need to know how, you know, to bring, and spiritists help us to do that. Can I give an example for you? The person doesn't believe in God, the person doesn't believe in spirit, the person just believes that you live this life, you die, that's it. You ask question like, simple question like, the other day happens to me in my work. And the person said, hey, let me ask a question. Why you do everything right? Why you make sure that you pay your tax, that you pay, that you are a good person? Why you do that? If tomorrow everything is going to disappear? Put the question, the person's responsibility. The person, oh, you know, because I have to do this. Well, so think about it and walk away. Let he thinks about it. Because that's what Kardec brought to us, the spirits brought to us. He asked question, and then of course, depends of the level of the person, we're gonna introduce what we believe in a very like homeopathic way, you know? Don't go to the allopathic way, because then you're gonna intoxicate the person and the person is gonna run away. So it's our responsibility how to behave before this. And I agree with you in the sense that in North American is like, it's a private thing. And we know by study spiritism that historically speaking, religion has done so much damage in humanity that now the word religion has this
negative connotation,
and people have inconscient traumas that you don't want to touch in that subject. But spiritualism come and open a new door for us to touch in the real meaning of the word religion as reconnected with the Creator, and establish this real sentiment, feeling with, you know, one another. So of course you need to feel where the persons come from, but I agree with Suzana, we should not also like, let's tell the truth, but let's use in a truth very light truth, you know, because if it is the truth itself.
Oh, listen, Jesus did not say all the truth.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And he used parables and he taught us what we could understand, the way that we could understand. We know that the spirits today have not yet said everything. And you know that the truth is revealed as we are able to understand it, acknowledge it, and integrate it. Same thing, I agree with Daniel 100%. If you know the person who is asking the question, you have a better chance of, you know, answering according to that person's set of belief and what you think would be the parts that he or she would accept the most or would be most open to. So you can introduce parts of it. I like always to start by saying, you know, when they ask specifically about an activity that I'm doing, I always like saying, you know, it's a group of friends that meet together. We're curious. Because when you say it's a group of friends, it right there makes it a very informal, very open, nothing to be afraid of, something that is within the reach of everyone. You know what I mean? I always say we come together to study, to learn. We are curious about spirituality. And then, you know, you gradually, as the conversation goes, as the person asks questions, you can, you know, reveal appropriately.
I really love that, and I must say that it does remind me of an experience I had with a friend, and we never talked too much about religion, but we had this brief conversation, and to be honest, I don't even remember a lot about it. What struck me as unforgettable was when we were talking about religion and spirituality, and his expression was something like, spirituality is great. What does it have to do with religion? It doesn't have anything to do with religion. Religion is something else.
Mm-hmm.
And those two things don't relate. So that was his understanding.
Right.
Well,
And
but
very much a North
because
American
of the,
understanding.
yeah, but that's because of the history of things, and that's because of what people carries in their baggage, right? So their luggage is full of problems related to religiosity. That's not from this life only, right? We have to remember we are immortal spirits, so we are carrying a heavy bag that we are slowly trying to understand and leave behind what we don't need. So I think that when we hear those things, we have to be mindful of that too, right?
Of course. And to be honest, I think this actually relates to what both Suzanne and Danielle said, because at that moment, I kind of also realized, at least with that person, because the doubt didn't leave my mind in general, but with that person, I realized, well, this is where this person is, right? So there's no reason for me to try to talk about religion and spirituality being related to each other. There's no use in that. There's no understanding that can come of it. And it actually accomplishes nothing. If we were to touch on this subject again, I don't have to talk about religion at all, because now I know where that person is coming from. I know what is their current state, regardless of the reasons, really, right? It even became less important.
Right.
Thank you.
Julia?
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really, really good, and I'm happy to be one of the last one to speak, because everybody said a lot before. But this question of, I think I need to go back to what is Spiritism at some point and read it. But this thing of how to answer what is Spiritism and how is it different, right? How is it different from the other religions? So this comes to my mind quite often. It was very, very, very helpful today, this discussion. And I have some notes that I'll have to study and just to get it inside my mind more clearly. And I was just remembering one situation. I didn't have the opportunity of people asking me so much about what is it that I do. I guess especially because I was inside the university, and you don't talk about, there's no such a thing as religion in there. So people don't even ask. So I didn't have a lot of opportunity to talk about it. But one time when I was studying recently, we had a final exam, and then we went to celebrate at the old spaghetti factory here. And at this place, they say there is a haunted table at the old spaghetti factory. So, oh yeah, where is the haunted table and all that? And we started talking about it, and one of my friends asked me, "Oh, do you believe in ghosts?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." So, but are you afraid? And I'm like, "No, I'm not afraid at all, because in my religion, we believe in spirits, and the spirits are just people like you and me. There's nothing bad to it. They're not gonna hurt. They're not trying to hurt us or anything." So I guess at that point is the first time I actually saw a difference, because it was like, "Oh, there's a ghost. Oh, really?" And then somehow, like, of course, the subject changed, but no one was like afraid anymore, or at least this person was not afraid anymore. So I guess it was enough, and I was happy to be able to talk about it, like,
Right.
naturally. But yeah, I think that's, but still, I still debate over the limits, or where is the border in between trying to help someone to see a brighter side of life and invading their belief or their stage, I don't know, stage of evolution, because I cannot possibly know what is their time. And I'm like, maybe I'm sent from God here at this moment, maybe to tell this person about this thing that's a spiritism. Maybe not. Maybe I just should, give them a hug and say everything's gonna be all right. I don't know what to do. So yeah, like
Well,
the actual
I think that Kardec, in What is Spiritism, he's going to say that Spiritism is not meant to be for people who have and who are satisfied with their religions and their belief system. But he says, but there's a lot of people who don't have a religion or a belief system, and that would be open to some ideas. So I think when I have a friend that was a professor when I was teaching as well, and she lost her baby, a full-born, full term, and the baby lost, and every year she grieves the baby. And one day I sent her a message. It was the anniversary of the death of the baby, and I said, I firmly believe that life goes on, and you're forever connected with this spirit. And I left it just like that. So it would have been, I just gave a hint that there was something that I knew, something that I want to share. I said, I firmly believe, and I'm sharing with you what I believe. At that moment, she could have completely ignored. She could have say, "Hey, what is it that you know? I want to know more." She never came to me. She appreciated. She thanked me for the comment. I think that she's Catholic. She does have some sort of belief. There was no curiosity at her time to ask me, "What is it that you believe?" And she knows. All my colleagues know that I do speeches in spirituality, and you know what I mean? So I think you can always give a hint that you have something that you know that you can offer, and leave it. And when people are ready, they will. The best way for us to market our belief system is the way we live, like Daniel mentioned. People observe, people see how we go through challenges, and that always is going to speak more than many, many words. And again, you can always offer a little something and see how the person responds. And I think that's something that we can do. It's not about doing speeches. It's not about trying to convince anyone. It's just about saying, "Hey, I have this idea that helps me a lot in life," and leave it and see what people do with it.
I think that, Julia, have you finished? Can I go? Thank
Sure.
you. So I think that the first thing that was said, that being living models of Spiritism, and then what Suzana said about the principles. The principles give us hope and an opportunity to show love, to experience love from a profound way, in a very deep way, if we understand and accept the principles. And that, if we leave that, we will be leaving religion. And people will know that. They will see that. And I think that's what Spiritism is for me. It's a way of understanding better and then trying to apply that on my life on a daily basis, especially when I go through a problem, because that's when that's where the trials are. That's where you need to show what you've got. And that's when you really apply what you have been studying, what you have been reading, what you have been learning. And when Daniel was talking, he talked about this, the big responsibility that we Spiritists have to spread the message and to really live what we have been studying. And I think when I think of the new paradigm of religion, I think that's what Spiritism brings us. It is this possibility of living a religious way without having to preach, without having to label, without having to have ideas that antagonize with other structured religions. And that's for me what Spiritism is. It's a path. It's a path to live the divine laws. That's the beauty of Spiritism. That's why we study and study and study, and when we go back to Kardec, that's what we are looking for. That path that will lead us to where we need to be. Is this the only path? I don't think so. I think that all the spirits are in different levels. Daniel touched on that too. So we have to go as according to the trials, to the level that we have now. But Spiritism is a secure path to go for me. And I think that if we do that, we'll be living the divine laws according to our level. I'm not there yet, but as Suzana said, I'm going to be there. I will get there. Not there yet, but I will get there. And I have to have this in mind. So if I may say, I think that's the new paradigm of religion that Spiritism brings us. The possibility of get a deeper understand and live it. I think that's the call for me. That's what I had to add. So.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all for having us.
Well, it's 5 p.m. So I will ask Danielle and Suzana to give us a final word, and then we can...
I'm going to go first, Suzana, this time.
Sure. No, I again, it was really nice. I enjoyed the model. I enjoyed meeting all of you. I hope and that this was useful for you. I mean, we have been through many meetings, different groups who are investing the word in English, and that is a very common topic and difficulty that we all share in terms of you know, how to disseminate, how to talk about it, how to define, how to introduce it. And so the more that we talk about it, the easier it becomes. We share our knowledge, we share our experiences. This is truly the way. As I hear you, I learn as well, and it becomes easier for me as well. So very, very nice. Thank you. And just, you know, just keep up on this path, on this work. We are here to help. We'll be taking a prolonged vacation right now from talking and kind of going inwards a little bit for a little bit of time. But English is our priority in terms of our work. So in the near future, next year, we are always available to do this work. It comes first, the work in English. So I'll be more than happy to contribute in any way. And thank you again, guys.
Can I just take the picture before we forget?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so
smile.
Got it?
Got it.
Okay.
Danielle?
Suzana, you're gonna be with us on Saturday.
Yes, next weekend is my
Is the last one? Okay.
Is my very last event for this year.
Before I give my final consideration, Suzana is gonna be with us next Saturday, presenting a workshop. If you want more information, I think Vivi, I share with Vivi and Rosanna, so you can share. It's gonna be online. So
we will share.
Okay, so you know what came to my mind when Rosanna was just bringing her comment was about the parable of the Good Samaritan. Because every time when we read or listen someone talking about that parable, we always think about the three people that walked through the person that was on the ground. And one thing that I think is very important for us is that we can be the Good Samaritan, but at the end of the day, we should never forget that this journey is personal. Sometimes we feel that we wanted to save the planet, to save our friend, to convert someone to become a spiritist. And that's a valid feeling. But you see that the Good Samaritan, they got the person that was on the ground, they brought you in, they pay, and he continued his journey. He didn't stay in the wing. So it's very important for us, and I commend this group to, come here to, another country and devote your time to do this in English, because we here from the Spiritist of Belgium, and Suzana as well in the Conscious Live, we felt that need. I felt that need like 20 years ago, when even my English was so poor. I said, oh my God, I'm here, I'm working, I make money. These countries provide a lot of material thing for me, what I'm sharing here. And to learn how to share this in a way that we can respect the culture that we are in is a process. And I think this connection here that we are having with one another is not because we are ahead, because everybody is in the same level, but we can share with you some of those struggles that we have when they starting a study group. So 19 years we did a transition from Portuguese to English. We have been doing this for almost 20 years. I can spend more 2 hours telling you how many questions we have received and how many times we struggle to answer those questions. But with time, we are learning. And I would like to, and I think Suzana as well, to keep the door open. So if you have anything that you wanted to check on us, if we have some feedback to you, we will pass for sure. Isn't it, Suzana?
Right.
We have tons of video in English in our Spiritist channel. You can go back and look at other talk. But I think study group and do what you guys doing here is fundamental. This needs to be going on forever, That's it. And thank you so much, Suzana. Big hug to you. Your father's in my prayers.
Thank you.
And we are here, of course, God knows, God never missed, and you're gonna be receiving our hugs, even though
I am.
Thank you.
I feel it.
I would like to thank you guys very much for being with us. I mean, as people mentioned, it's not the first time that we watch the lecture with you guys. We have been watching you over time to kind of trying to learn the ways through the English speech and new thoughts that come. I think that it's always rich, but having you guys here meant a lot to us. So thank you for accepting. Thank you to you, especially Suzana, for the difficult time and nevertheless being here with us. It's much appreciated. We really, really appreciate that. So, so in the name of PTSS, a big thanks, a big hug on you all. And I will do the closing prayer so that we can finalize our studies today. So let us just grasp this blessed energy that are over us now. And let us feel embraced in a big hug where we share this energy of love, of joy, of gratitude for the opportunity of being here today, for the opportunity of learning and sharing what we have with others. And let us share the light that we received today with the whole planet. Let us imagine that our big hug is now around Earth itself. Let us share this love with the whole humanity, incarnate and discarnate spirits. And let us finish the meeting tonight giving thanks to Jesus and God. So be it.